Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I am going to be going over the major things that we ended up getting from Campaign 15 in Gems of War, as well as some teams for them, their overall viability, and how to get them into the future. So of course, with the event wrapping up today, I figured we'd finally go and get around to some of these. One of them actually came in pretty late into the week, whereas this guy was so weak I was almost planning not to cover him. However, a weapon that should have came out this Monday, we ended up getting, I believe, on Thursday, and is actually among one of the best true damage weapons in the game now. So we're going to be going over Dread Captain Grimm and a new Ruby weapon that's basically the new best true damage weapon, though Life and Death will still be used occasionally depending on the team composition. Anyways, let's start with the Dread Captain. So, how do you get him in the future? He is a mythic from Blackhawk. So, to be able to get him, you need to wait till the next Blackhawk vent rolls around and go for event keys, or wait until he rotates into the Soul Forge in the next several months, and then get him through 4,000 diamonds. Those would be the main two ways you would get him in the future. Would you want to get him? Probably not. He's pretty bad. He's a weird archetype of team that doesn't really exist much currently within the game, and in the situations where you would use him, you'd probably just replace him with a second little Johnny instead of even using him. But as far as what he does, he deals a bunch of damage boosted by gems and his treasure maps, and then creates some booty gems and gains 2 maps. So he's creating a bunch of booty gems and maps, so basically gold and treasure map, the resource that basically isn't used to play the treasure hunt minigame, and just has a pretty standard AoE damage. This is pretty comparable to most legendaries as far as how much damage it will do off its ability, like Queen Titania and similar. In many situations may even do less overall compared to what they're doing, and very much less if you compare it to any of the Gem Dragons, Nymatina, or anything of the like. So for the most part, not much of a use case. His final traits, while really good at locking up the board, doesn't really do anything either. 1 booty gem per turn. This is one of those things where if we get more booty gem mechanics after the fact, that it might be a little bit more viable. But as it currently stands by the end of the campaign, we have not gotten enough viable booty options to be able to build like pure booty teams. Like you're not going to build a 4x booty team. Even the team that we're going to be showing with him is a 4x treasure map team, not a 4x booty team. So even in that context, with the mythic kind of based around booty, he can still not even be used in a proper booty team, as one doesn't currently exist until we get some better options for it. However, there is that. But there is something better we ended up getting as a bit of a surprise. So we've gotten this a couple times. Most recently, which is ages ago, we got Dustbringer. Dustbringer happened, I think, on the 4th or 5th campaign, and we're on the 15th now. But yeah, I think this was around the 4th campaign. And basically how it worked basically exactly how this campaign did, is during the campaign, you get 3 weapons. In this case, in the past one, it was the Ankh of Nefertani, the Blade of Nefertani, and the Scarab of Nefertani. You got all 3 of them, and then you use those 3 in order to craft this weapon. And this is essentially the exact same way that the Ruby, I still have no clue what to call it, I'm just calling it the Ruby. I cannot pronounce that monkey word. But anyways, the Ruby. As far as the Ruby, same premise. You end up getting the Dread Arquebus, you end up getting the Lodestar, and you end up getting the Dread Cutlass. During this campaign, they were all on the paid side of the pass. However, if you want to get them in the future, you simply just have to wait for their given week, and then you can just craft them pretty cheaply in Soulforge. When I say cheaply, I mean it will cost exactly like this, but for those colorations. So for example, this one is a blue and yellow, so its cost would end up being 400 of these blue jewels, 400 of the yellow jewel. I know that's brown, but you know, the other one would be yellow. 10,000 souls, 200 diamonds, and 2 celestials. And you'd have to wait until their corresponding week. So for example, this one, you have to wait for a Dragon's Claw week. This one you'd have to wait for a Broken Spire week. And this one you have to wait for a Blighted Lands week. So it could take about half a year to a year before free-to-play players can actually end up getting access to this weapon. And it is actually pretty decent. If you have Life and Death, it's not too big of a difference in comparison. And we just did have that available the other week, or actually this week, last week, very recently. And yeah, that was this week, this Tuesday, or last Tuesday. But anyways, but it's pretty comparable to that, but it hits everything. This is essentially the first all true damage hitting weapon. We do have one other, but it's actually $5 paywall if you didn't get it like 8 years back. And it's Crescendo. So Crescendo got nerfed, buffed a couple times, but ultimately it was left in a state where it only does half its magic as damage. So it does half its magic +1 or half its magic +2. Yeah, I think it's half its magic +2. So it deals a small amount of true damage to all enemies, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, not that strong because the amount of true damage you're ultimately doing is pretty low because you're getting halved before you even get the ability off. However, this one's not halved. It does the full amount of damage. So whatever your magic is +2, that's how much damage you're doing. So in this case, we have 46 +2, 48. And we end up doing that all enemies, and then create some booty gems, which isn't too relevant, but what is particularly relevant about it, 5 Gem Explode. 5 Gem Explode can definitely go a long way. Of course, just to get a bunch of mana accumulation. We've seen this on like Queen Zachi and a few other things like that, though she needs a storm to do it. This one just does it automatically, so it's pretty nice. But yeah, 5 explodes do a lot more mana accumulation than you might think, especially when they actually land perfectly, especially when they land extra turns. I think the biggest benefit of this is that it does have extra turn potential. A lot of like really good high damage hero weapons, they tend to just kind of do their thing and then you end your turn. But while this one might end your turn, it does have extra turn potential. Not a particularly high amount compared to like loop teams. It's definitely not something you should depend on extra turning, and it's definitely not something you would build into necessarily a loop team. But it is something that can apply a lot of true damage, especially if you don't have access to some of the other things, like if you're waiting for life and death to roll around, but you happen to have access to this first. Of course, its biggest milestone, or its biggest bottleneck, aside from waiting to get these 3 weapons if you didn't get them from the campaign, will be to get the 1 million souls. 1 million souls, of course, a pretty decent chunk of souls. You do eventually get more than you ever know what to do with. However, until then, it is very hard to get 1 million souls, of course. And there are multiple weapons, not just this one, that would end up requiring it. Of course, there's things like Dawnbringer, Dustbringer that we just showed that do end up requiring that really high amount of 1 million souls to craft, as well as other things that just use a small amount. But I would say this is a pretty high priority. I'm not sure if I'd necessarily put it above Dawnbringer, but it is really high priority as far as like the 1 million gold soul, or sorry, not 1 million gold, the 1 million soul weapons. It has a lot of potential, being able to do true damage to all enemies simultaneously. So let's go and mess with a couple teams. So all these will be in the description below if you want to go and copy paste any of them. So let's start all the way from the top. We'll of course be going over the Ruby first, and then going into other teams. So we're going for a bit of a mid-range team here. I actually ended up removing the other mythic. I was doing it with like Scourge of Honor and a few other things, Weaver and stuff like that. But I ended up just ultimately just going for Tesla. Tesla, ever since they got the buffed earlier this year, is just kind of insane, so might as well use it. It's just getting so much value, plus it makes the team overall cheaper anyway, so we'll go with the good old Tesla. You just throw some down Tesla. We have Beatrix here for cleanse and to get our mana. This feeds right into the full AoE. You then cast the full AoE, boom, dead. And as you saw, we got some mana accumulation there. We did not get an extra turn, but we did get quite a substantial amount of mana, which we couldn't quite see because, of course, we already won with the battle there. But next, we're going to go with a pure mech team. This one uses Bork, the Ruby, Tina, and you could replace out for a 4th unique mech, but since we have double Tina, we are going for double Tina. Though, of course, if you don't happen to have a second Tina, you could replace that out for pretty much any mech that can help with mana or damage or whatever you want to do. Unfortunately, I can't really put Tesla there. Tesla, unfortunately, does not count as a mech. Well, you could still put her there if you really wanted to, but it's not a pure mech team anymore. But, of course, Bork also got buffed when Tesla got buffed, so you can end up going for that mass mana accumulation. Has quite a bit compared to the average. Actually, we're almost all the way up to the full 64 at this point. And if we upgrade some of our magic kingdoms, we already would be. So we'll go and do pretty similar. We go for a little bit of true damage here. We actually get to see it explode, do a little bit more value this time around. As you can see, we already got half our mana back, which is great to see. So we'll just go for this. Very similar to Scourge of Honor in that regard, in that you already gain like a super large chunk of your mana back. And as you can see, we end up using that to get our last little bit of mana. We go for this. You know what? We'll go for the Explode. Let's see if we can get 5 Explode to feed that to full mana. We did not, so we're just going to have to go for Bork and just poke him out with that. And just hit him again. We'll just do whatever. We can hit Tina, anything else. Obviously, Tina, pretty good if they end up reviving or we need to focus down a single unit. Well, we can just keep going for the Explodes. It also maxes out your gold pretty much any time you're using this. I wouldn't necessarily say you would want to use it in a gold farming team. However, it could definitely be incorporated into a gold farming team if you really want to. Like using it with Cedric, Leprechaun, stuff like that. None of these teams specifically go down that route. But, for example, if you wanted to, just replace this Astral Spirit. Actually, you know what? We're going to. Why not? I put this Astral Spirit here because I was like, I kind of want to, you know, have a little bit more true damage there. Need a little bit more damage pressure. But you know what? Let's just go with Cedric. If I can spell his name right. Yeah, let's go Cedric. It's the same color anyways. Overall, the team's still playing the same way. So, yeah, let's go for Cedric there. So this will give us just a little bit of gold. So this is going to be the low rarity team. I guess Cedric technically makes it a little bit less low rarity, but, you know, you just open some vault keys. If you farmed a bunch during this vault event that we had right now, that we have now every single month, pretty much, then honestly, it's just so easy to get Cedric these days. So I would almost consider him, even though he's a legend, I would say he's a pretty easy legend to get these days. Same as why I have Queen Beatrix here. Faction legends are also really easy to get. Normally standard legends from kingdoms I wouldn't really consider under easy to get category, but there are some exceptions like Cedric from Vault Keys and every single one in Underworld, as they are always targetable regardless of if they have an event key week or not. Anyways, similar premise, we just keep throwing down Mask. We're going to max out our gold. With Cedric here, we're going to get some extra gold, so might as well utilize on that. We'll take our Brown here, and since we get so much mana back every single time, we can simply just keep casting it over and over again. Obviously, it's not going to gain all of its mana back. Very rarely would that ever happen, but it will gain a pretty substantial amount. Unfortunately, pretty bad board here. Leprechaun's not ready, so we're just going to go for Brown, see if we can get something from Sky. A lot of the mana I need right now just does not want to give us. I guess we go for a Skull, but honestly, I just kind of wanted to get Skull distracted. I did this as Elemental. It's not necessarily the best hero class for this. You might want Archer for like Greenstorm or something similar. We used Warden on the other team for Dispel and Greenstorm. And that's something we could have done on this one. The reason I went for Elementalist is just a really tanky hero class. So earlier on in the game, you might end up needing that. And as you can see, we maxed out our gold. Not only maxed out our gold, but since we went with Cedric, we got a little bit extra. As you can see, we got pretty much 6,000 gold for that fight. And while it's definitely not the quickest way to get gold, it is a way that you can, well, end up racking up quite a bit as far as just like general fights. As you can take pretty much any fight out with this. It's really well-rounded, has a true damage to everything, a little bit of Beatrix as follow-up, and of course you have the Cedric for the excess gold. So overall, it's a fine team if you want to go for a little bit extra gold. Not the highest rate in the game, but it would definitely give you a pretty substantial amount per hour. I would assume probably about 300,000 per hour. Compared to things that would do like 500,000 plus, but still not too bad. Hey, still Voltivent after all. Gonna cash those in later. But let's see. So with this team, we want to go for Tyree. And let me double check our banner with this. Which banner did we opt for? Brown. Okay, so I didn't put plus into Tyree. I was going to initially and then opted not to. You can if you want to. It really depends how you want to play this team. Biggest issue with putting plus on her or on this exact team setup is there's nothing to really feed into. Like, there's no excess green or purple. So it feels a little bit of a waste to have extra banner on her. But there is a really interesting effect that Tyree has that actually isn't mentioned anywhere on her card, and is unique only to Tyree. She ends up increasing the max maps you can have. So you might notice in a normal fight, your map number will say 0 out of 10, as it normally does, as it normally should. But if you use Tyree on your team, and I believe only Tyree, I can't think of a single other map troop in the game that currently does this. I'm pretty sure it's exclusive to Tyree, despite it not saying it anywhere on her. But she increases your cap to 20 instead of 10. This is really good on map-related teams, where you have map boost ratios, particularly something that can actually scale that high, because for something like Lil Johnny, you normally only need like a 8 map boost ratio to really get him going. Where something like this, you could very benefit from having it all the way at 20. So with this, we can end up getting that synergy and, yeah, just get a lot of extra value that way. So we're going to go for blue here, just get all these things off the board. Might end up giving a little bit of value there, but that's fine. We do want to go get our stats up a little bit. Definitely not the quickest of team. Honestly, every single team with him is super gimmicky and not that viable. But it's one of the reasons we haven't really showed a team for him yet. But we have messed around with him the other week, and he's fun to use if nothing else. He just is really bad. Unlike the mask that is like actually viable to use, this thing's never going to be getting used in any kind of context, unfortunately. But it's nice to see map farm teams try to attempt to get an option, as I do feel like it's one of the most neglected team types that we really have access to within the game. So right here, he has guaranteed 2 maps, so we're going to go for that. Of course, he has a boost ratio based on all the booty gems and maps that we have. So we're getting 2 boost ratio from the maps and the rest from all the booty gems that are currently on the board, of which there is a decent chunk. Obviously, compared to a standard AoE, that is barely anything. I think Queen, even just a standard Gem Dragon's AoE, I think by default is already higher than what he would have done in that context. But of course, we get other things that can end up using map boost ratio. One of those being how many skulls we end up creating here. So we can end up doing Lil Johnny to get a ridiculously huge amount of skulls, and then just keep poking them. And ideally, we got something like an attack buff or something similar over there. Get over a mana, throw down skulls again, and, you know, rinse and repeat. We get a little bit more maps there, gives us our boost ratio, we get a little bit of skulls. And of course, as you'd kind of expect from this... Oh, I should have taken that first. As you would kind of expect from this much gold gaining and booty gems, we are easily capping out our gold. Which is one nice mechanic about booty gems in general, is... even though there's not much of a team synergy for any kind of booty gem related team, the biggest benefit is you're basically always capping out your gold. So if you want to put in a Cedric onto your team, just kind of plop it down or something similar, you can end up getting away with that and end up capping out your gold every single time. It's not too many things do that. Like, I guess you can with like a Greed or something similar. And I would say it's one of the bigger benefits that you do ultimately end up getting from the booty gem. That, and you get to watch the board get completely locked up. Because, gosh, this guy creates a booty gem every single turn, and yeah, there's not much to do with them. There is not much to do. We'll go take that, get her a little bit of mana. I kind of want to cast him for one big AoE, because we're getting to the point where we're kind of just getting one massive booty gem poke on him. So we're going to go for that just for the fun of it. Okay, we lost a troop, that's fine. We didn't really need him. He's just kind of there to chill. We'll go for Tyree. We'll go for that last little bit of mana. Come on, I want this big AoE. We'll do it on blue just so he doesn't do something annoying. And how much damage do we do now with this many booty gems? With a total of 19 booty gems on the board, we are doing what a standard Gem Dragon would do with no buff. Oh, that's so bad. Well, maybe Diamantina. Actually, I think a standard Gem Dragon might be a little bit lower than that. But we're doing... How much damage is that? There's 100 and... Math. 124. So, obviously, not that good. Diamantina, by default, pretty much already has that. But we get that down. Boom. Poke. We're still going to need to do that multiple times just to kill it out, so... We'll just go for that last little bit of poke and should be good to go. Guess we'll kill a little Johnny, which was kind of mentioning before. You almost get more benefit just from doubling up on little Johnny than you even do from this guy. But hey, you get to watch a whole full, board of booty gems lock up. And we actually did get a mana drain thingy with it when we were messing around with it earlier. I'm not going to do that right now, otherwise we'll be here for the next, like, 10 minutes. But, yeah, you can kind of, like, lock down the board in that regard, which also denies out the enemy. And in some cases could be kind of okay to do, but for the most part, it's not going to be worth it just because of how ultra time-consuming it is. And in given battles like this where you generally just want to win as quickly as possible, he's not really going to get much usage. And as we mentioned earlier, definitely not worth using, but one thing that it definitely is, that weapon. I do advise keeping an eye for all 3 of these kingdoms when they roll around, assuming you're playing free-to-play or didn't get the pass this season, as you're definitely want to going to get the ruby, this weapon. Ends up coming out through Dragon's Claw, Broken Spire, and Blade of Land. So keep an eye out for all 3 of those kingdoms when they roll back around. Make sure to get those weapons on those respective kingdom weeks, and then you can end up getting this into the future. Overall, really great weapon. Highly advised using. Other mythic, definitely don't get it when the last mythics you'll ever craft unless some kind of booty gem team ever comes up. And that's pretty much the verdict. Weapon good, mythic bad. And there you go. Anyways, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. As I mentioned, all the teams we showed here are in the description if you want to go copy-paste any of them. I'll catch you guys later. Bye, everyone, and thanks for watching.